Hello, and welcome to Analog Slop, where two music industry lifers revisit their youth via the NME and Melody Maker of the 90s. We will be exploring artists we discovered as wide-eyed teenagers, only to disown as sneering 20-somethings. Now, unshackled from hipster baggage, we dive deep into the pre-digital age to look back on a time when Christmas meant twice the issue. My name is Graham Best. I've worked in music publishing and music tech for 20 years.
And my name is Adam Bushell. I've been a music supervisor for over 20 years. Each week, one of us will read the NME, one of us will read the Melody Maker, and we'll pick out the most interesting stories and discuss them. This week, we continue our hurried voyage into the top 50 albums of 1995 from the NME and Melody Maker, taking in albums 25 to 1, attempting to place the whole endeavour in the context of 2025, and we offer up our personal top 10 albums of 1995.
Hello. You join us for part 2 of our rundown of the top 50 albums of the year from both the NME and the Melody Maker in the year of 1995. Last episode, you would have heard us grind our way through 50 to 25, which is an odd place to leave it, with a banquet of random tangents on the way. You join us as we get into the business end of the lists. So without further ado, let's get stuck into 24. Adam, I believe you're up first with Melody Maker's 24th best album of 1995.
Yeah, and it's an album we've already discussed. It is Disgraceful by Dubstar, which was on your list. It was 47. So yeah, let's do your 24.
Yeah, 24 in the NME's list. NME describes it as the fourth Beastie Boy going solo with a stunningly diverse debut, squeezing 70s funk, trip-hop, acid jazz, progressive techno, and easy listening into one giant Scooby snack.
Mark's Keyboard Repair.
Mark's Keyboard Repair by Money Mark. My memories of this at the time I may have invented, but I can best be described as, why is Adam making us listen to this album again?
Yeah.
Was it this one you were into, or was it the second one?
I think the second one is the one I liked more. As I remember, this one is very scrappy and kind of like music journal-y. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so my contemporary take on this was that it's this vibey little sort of tape of home demos and sketches.
Yeah. Important to mention, released on Mowax.
Well, that's my other point. I mean, it's the Mowax debut for the Beastie Boys studio carpenter turned keyboardist. And if I'm being obnoxiously cynical, if not performatively cynical,
yeah,
I would say that James Lavelle signed this purely to ingratiate himself with the Beastie Boys camp. I don't know, it worked. He got his Mike D feature on the Uncle album.
It was a long 4 years between Ill Communication and Hello Nasty. So yes, the Money Mark's 2 solo albums came out in that time. Hurricane album came out in that time, DJ Hurricane. For Beastie Boys fans, these were things you were just kind of grabbing onto as you were patiently waiting.
I feel like for the Beastie Boys fan in my life, they would grab any available crumb from the table.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind hearing this again. I don't have great memories of it. I'd love to hear it and see how it's aged. How has it aged?
It didn't ruin my day, but I'm never going to listen to it again. It's a guy doing some little sketches and demos at home. And your level of interest in that will be dictated by the wider context you place that in. Do
you know what, though? In having, post-hypnagogic pop, it almost sounds a bit like an early DuckTales tape or something like that. I guess that's what I kind of made me, obviously with the keyboard rather than the guitar, but it's kind of made me want to have another listen, but maybe I'm putting something on it that's not there.
It's not the worst comparison. You know what? I'm good, but you should have another listen.
Okay, all right. Well, Mark's Keyboard Repair by Money Mark did not make the Melody Maker top 50. What did is number 23 is Olympian by Gene. I'm guessing that also made your list.
Nope, it is not
really?
On my list. I completely forgot this came out in 1995.
Wow, I find that really, really hard to believe. That's crazy.
To reiterate, Money Mark's debut demo tape is at 24, but Gene is not in the top 50.
Wow, they must have been really not on the Gene train. I actually really enjoyed this. It's like 40 minutes long.
That instantly gives it a big advantage in this field.
Yeah, it's one of those I've seen mentioned in the kind of slept on Britpop albums that are actually really good, and this is high up the list for those. Yeah, it's 40 minutes, singles are really good. I didn't have it back in the day. I really liked the song Haunted by You. Yes, it sounds like the Smiths, but kind of via mid-90s Britpop.
Yeah, I knew everyone was ragging on them for being a Smiths ripoff, but I wasn't really sure what the Smiths sounded like at this point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that was no skin off my nose.
As I say, went down easy. When you hear what my 22 is, you'll understand maybe why I bumped it up a bit. What's your 23?
Speaking of indigestible and never ending,
Yeah.
it is Massive Attack versus Mad Professor, No Protection.
Okay.
So this is the Mad Professor's album-length dub treatment of Massive Attack's 1994 Protection album. The NME goes for a very literal reading and describes it as stripping down the original to an atmospheric underworld of spooked minimal noise.
Mm-hmm.
My view on it at the time was no more sophisticated than why is this album suspiciously cheap?
Yeah.
It's a perennial mid-price selection in every music store that I frequented at this time. Now it's kind of less than the sum of its parts.
Really?
It sounds like I've written it down as proto dubstep with acid flourishes, which sounds great. And the dub treatment is genuinely great. It's a bit less traditionalist than like the Adrian Sherwood sort of style of these things. But it ultimately comes down to the source material. And I've never really got on with the source material apart from maybe the title track of the album. So it's kind of lost on me. Between this and Money Mark at 23 and 24, I don't know, those are weirdly odd placings for awkward albums.
It's really funny because I'd heard this was really good and always meant to have a listen to it. But yeah, you're not selling it to me.
No, it's an interesting artifact. I think, despite accusing Adrian Sherwood of being more of a dub traditionalist, I do think what he does on Echo Deck for Primal Scream, or in 1997, or even what he did a couple of years ago for Sonic Boom and Panda Bear's album. Those are both vastly preferable dub albums of non-dub source material.
Also, their association with Horace Andy, he obviously, what is it called? In the Light of Dub? Is that what it's called? That album, it's absolutely amazing. Don't know if you heard that.
You know what? I don't think I have heard that.
It's really good. I think I bought it because I read somewhere it's supposed to be the best dub album ever made. I was like, fine, I'll give this a go. And it's very, very good.
Was this on the Melody Maker Top 50?
It was not. Nowhere to be found. I mean, there's a trip hop elephant in the room, which neither of us have got to yet. I'm sure it's on your list. It's certainly on mine. But yeah, no Massive Attack this year. Their remix albums went so far as the John Spencer Blues Explosion. No further. So my 22 is the debut album by My Life Story called Mornington Crescent. We mentioned My Life Story before. They're like a symphonic Britpop band is the best way to describe them. This was re-released in 1998 after the second album came out. When it was rearranged with extra tracks added. So I kind of made my own version of this original track list on Spotify. They're kind of tipped for pulp style stardom. And I'll be honest with you, I could see an alternate universe where that happens if they had much better singles, but they didn't. So, it never quite happened for them.
I am haunted by the King of Kissingdom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, 12 Reasons Why I Love Her. I remember that. I owned the second album, but yeah, not this one. Was this album on your list, Graham?
No, the Divine Comedy did not meet the enemy's criteria.
Sorry, My Life Story.
Oh, no, shit. Well, they didn't make it either.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
I've always found those two acts completely interchangeable in my head.
Yeah, which makes no sense. I know exactly what you mean, and they sound nothing like each other. But there's something about the vibe which is very similar.
Yeah, 100%. Anyway, the enemy is 22. I'm about to have to take a sharp knife to one of my sacred cows.
Okay.
It's a spiritualized electric mainline with pure phase.
Ah.
The NME says, while Britpop mania raged, Jason Pierce went out on a limb, a beautiful exploration of the aesthetics of pure sound, which I have often agreed with as a concept when listening to this album. I mean, at the time, Bez was oblivious to me. This came out super, super early in 1995, after a 2 year long drip feed of alternate version singles and EPs. But it's sunk without a trace by the time I switched over from Kerrang. I think it's like lifetime sales by the end of the 90s was something like 16,000 copies, which
Oh
is
wow.
ludicrously low for an album on a very large independent in 1995. Anyway, getting down to business. For much of my teenage and adult life, I would have described this as my favorite album of all time,
Mm-hmm.
which I must describe as distinct from best album of all time.
Yep, yep, yep.
And to be honest, a lot of I think this came up on a recent episode.
Yes, because I just listened to it for the first time this summer.
So a lot of its allure has been soiled by a really, really crushingly pedestrian 2025 played in full gig I saw at the Barbican of this, which did an incredible job of robbing all magic from the original recordings. Sitting with it again for the first time since those gigs in the last week, it's still an album where if I'm in the right mood, I can get a bit lost in it. It's still some of the most, what I would claim as some of the most beautiful string arrangements ever recorded. The Baroness Quartet are all through this, which is the string quartet that Michael Nyman used when he was at the kind of height of his 90s pomp. And I think this came up on your snap judgment when you listen to it. The influences really do kind of stick out like a sore thumb on occasion. But it's really, really hard to ignore the source material, especially on the kind of the more sort of up tempo or more overtly rock stuff. Like I said, the string arrangements, there are tracks on there like All of My Tears and Spread Your Wings, which are utterly incredible and still hold up. Yeah, it's a bit of a soiled highlight for me now.
That's funny because I was looking forward to hearing it again, but it was not on the Melody Maker top 50 list. That did not make it. So yeah,
Brutal.
brutal. I'll tell you what did make it in at number 21 is the self-titled debut album by Elastica.
As low as that? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. A breezy 38 minutes and 7 seconds. This was presumably also on your list?
Yep. It is at number 11 on my list.
So I thought it aged quite well. I think their reputation as the Britpop band with the best taste is got well earned. Kind of holds up. It's a bit kind of boring in the middle, but good singles, and yeah, doesn't outstay its welcome. Yeah, enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean that pretty much mirrors my experience. At the time, I found this to be not intimidatingly so, but definitely a bit cool. Like you were dealing with kind of something with a bit more pretension than the average Britpop act. I really like the singles. I didn't like the singles enough to buy them, but I liked them. Hearing it now, kind of hard to shake the feeling there's not enough material to sustain an album, but the highs are really high. The other thing that really leaps out at me is the production is way more sophisticated and electronic than you would think
Yes.
from the kind of tropes of the era. Like Connect, which I know is like everyone knows how that song sounds now, but it's stacked with layers of synths. That's really noticeable, and like electronic textures to the point where Justine Frischmann being involved with the early MIA productions feels way less surprising when you put it in that context.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, good. Unlike some of the bands from this period or on this list, no animosity from my end towards Elastica. Your 21, speaking of animosity, we'd already covered, which is Exit the Dragon by Urge Overkill.
Yeah. Let us never speak of it again.
Yeah. My 20, which I do not have anything to say about unless you do, is Skin Touching Water by Delicatessen. I would imagine this was not on the NME list, or am I wrong?
No, it was not.
Yeah. I found this quite tedious and impossible to engage with. The Melody Maker call it a singular masterpiece of faintly psychotic horror pop. It may well be, but I wasn't able to give it enough of a chance within the time that we had. I was just kind of waiting for it to end, to be honest.
For my own morbid curiosity, what does it actually sound like? Like I have no way of placing what Delicatessen sound like. I remember the name. That's it.
I can't remember.
That's the piercing analysis our listeners have come from.
Yeah, I did a poor job. It's funny. I mixed them up with Drugstore, who also have an album on this list. So your 20 also we've already done, which is Exit Planet Dust by the Chemical Brothers. Okay, so 19 is Wake Up by the Boo Radleys. I was dreading this. like I really did not want to listen to this album. I owned this as a teenager. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. The really weird thing is, as I mentioned in the last episode, is that like Melody Maker is doing this bizarre thing where they're holding this up as the correct way to rip off the Beatles. They're like, if you're going to rip off the Beatles, this is how you do it. Grand Prix by Teenage Fan Club and All Changed by Cast are held up as retrogressive step backs and the wrong way to rip off the Beatles. When I talk about them having an axe to grind, I mean, there's a half-page article about exactly this. Like, if you're going to rip off the Beatles, this is how you do it. And the Wake Up by the Boo Radleys is held up as the gold standard. Teenage Fan Club, it says, in addition to this, they are ripping off the worst parts of the 60s, such as the Birds, which are held up as like the ultimate bad taste dig. Boo Radleys, on the other hand, basically have gone backward to look forward. Hard disagree. Really fucking infuriatingly, the best song on this album by a mile is Stuck on Amber, which completely rips off Teenage Fan Club. Yeah, fuck you, Melody Maker, basically. I hard disagree with that take. Was Wake Up by the Boo Radleys on your list?
Sadly, it was. It was a number 14.
Okay.
NME described it as the sort of dazzling pure pop, all caps, album the likes of Take That can only begin to dream of. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, think of the success they could have had if they'd released an album like Wake Up.
Yeah, Wake Up was the sound of the summer and most of the rest of the year too, which matched my perception at the time, which was utter indifference in the face of ubiquity.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to it today, it's just generic mid-90s indie pop music from where I'm standing. I will say the album version of Wake Up has nearly a minute of vocal harmonies that reminded me of the Beach Boys album Friends, like specifically meant for you, which was a pleasant surprise. And then the actual song started.
Beach Boys, mid-period, I should say. Beach Boys is also mentioned as a reference in the Melody Maker as something the Boo Radleys are referencing.
Make of this what you will, but some of this, and in particular what I think was a second or third single from the album called It's Lulu, sounds to me like the Wild Hearts with a horn section. Yeah,
I just really hate the song Wake Up Boo, and it made me really dislike it. Putting them in opposition to Teenage Fan Club really annoyed me, especially considering the overall quality of this album.
I hate the Wake Up horn parts, and you know where I stand on horn parts in general, so I can only imagine how enraged you are.
Yeah. So what's your 19?
My 19 is Garbage and their self-titled debut.
Well, I've got shocking news for you, Graham. The self-titled debut of Garbage was also 19 in the Melody Maker.
Oh, that's a wonderful bit of synchronicity.
So what did you think of Garbage by Garbage?
So at the time, I remember hearing Val, the very first single, get its radio debut. Val got released, I think, as like a super limited 7-inch in a PVC rubber sleeve, and it blew me away. I really, really liked that single. So I was kind of on board from there. Like I was buying that album on site. I really liked the album a lot of the time. Like it was outside of my usual wheelhouse, but there were things that I found fascinating about it. The one that stood out at the time was As Heaven Is Wide, which in retrospect is kind of like Voodoo People by The Prodigy wearing a Claire's Accessories choker. Now, kind of bracket it the same way I talked about A Northern Soul by The Verve. It's this kind of electro-goth gateway drug, and it's just dripping with melodrama.
Yeah.
I think the writing and the production still stand up. You're basically looking at an album of Nine Inch Nails' production palette, but it's reappropriated for actual pop songs, some of which are surprisingly accessible. It's an album track. It wasn't even a single, but Not My Idea is this amazing kind of Sunday's Gone Industrial track. Really enjoyed it.
So I wrote the most 90s album ever made. It's like a parody of the first half of the decade dance-influenced alternative rock, The Thinking Man's Republica. uh, I, I wrote, enormous fun. The album Yankee Hotel Foxtrot could have been.
Yeah, that's what Jim O'Rourke really wanted from Yankee Hotel Foxtrot.
Actually, I agree with you. It was really fun listen. I didn't think I'd get much out of it. I really enjoyed it. And I've just realised I completely messed up. I've got some kind of number dyslexia going on. Of course, it's 18, not 19, because we just did 19. These numbers are just really confusing me for some reason.
Well,
So what's your 18?
my 18 sees us take a turn to both the meat and the potatoes. It's the self-titled album by the Charlatans, which I think is their fourth album.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. The NME reckons this is a rebirth of a fine band after 5 years of personal disasters and stuttering brilliance, and it's a rootsy, funky, organic stew of rock and soul. I think when this came out, certainly when the singles were in circulation, I was still in Kerrangland a fair bit, and I enjoyed Just When You're Thinking Things Over, but I was also conscious it was very chirpy for someone with my serious young man aspirations.
Yeah.
Now, it's like it's another needlessly long album. When it's good, and Crashing In particular is, I think, one of the best things the Charlatans have ever done. It's fantastic. You get that real kind of churning sort of wall of sound, but there's a lot of really nondescript like rock that just made me zone out. Did this make the Melody Maker?
Yes, it was 15. I enjoyed listening to it. It's funny because they mentioned several times in the issue and in their capsule review this kind of breathless, look out America, here come the charlatans vibe, which just, to be honest, made me think about how Gen X music writers just have a distorted view of what was possible for an indie band. I think because they grew up in the era of Depeche Mode, New Order, The Cure and the Smiths.
Oh, and U2.
And U2, yeah, exactly. It seems like an unrealistic expectation, this kind of vaguely, they're like, oh, it sounds vaguely Stonesy. So, look out, US, they're going to be massive. Seems like a bit much. But yeah, no, I pretty much agree with you. Excellent singles, basically. Really good singles on this album. Yeah, and not much else. 17, another completely random album. You may well have heard of this, actually, which is Only Heaven by the Young Gods. You've heard of this?
I have listened to this before, but I couldn't tell you what it sounds like. It's not in the NME list.
Okay, is it like an industrial metal album? I don't know whether this was their like self-conscious metal pick. I don't know why they would have done that, but it's a bit random. It's okay, but considering the stuff that we've already discussed that's been left out and the stuff which is higher than this, it's kind of a bit of a baffling choice for me at number 17. Your number 17 we've already talked about is A Northern Soul by The Verve. My number 16 is Wild Love by Smog. Did this make the NME list?
No, they went for that Palace album instead to tick this box.
Melody Maker went for both. Yeah, I'm not the biggest Smog fan in the world, but I thought this was pretty good. Kind of downer lo-fi album. Again, breezy 35 minutes and 15 seconds. So I enjoyed that. Your number 16 we already talked about was Wowie Zowie by Pavement.
We sure did talk about it.
My 15, as we just mentioned, is The Charlatans by The Charlatans. What was your 15?
Here's a blast from the recent past. It's Rocket from the Crypt with Hot Charity.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the NME positions this as a limited edition vinyl job from a San Diego group currently well on course to be the best rock and roll band in the known universe by mid-1996, which is, like a reasonable prophecy.
We will cover this in a future episode, as you're correctly alluding to.
They burned hard and fast. At the time, I think in 1995, I don't think this was on my radar. Maybe you'd played it to me, I'm not sure. As we will expand upon in the future. Now, I think this is the best thing Rocket from the Crypt ever did, and one of the most ludicrously tight rock recordings of all time. Also, it's 30 minutes long. That's amazing.
Well, speaking of amazing, my number 14 was self-titled album by Drugstore. It was the velvety indie, as I described it. This was just excellent. I loved this. I thought it was great. I will definitely listen to this again. Was this on your list?
It wasn't, no, but I do seem to remember this being like notable at the time. Has this got El Presidente on it?
No, that's later. It sounds
Okay.
nothing like that. Like I was prepared for that. That's the only song of theirs I think I'd heard up until maybe some singles around that Steve Lamacq would have played or whatever. But like, yeah, no, I hadn't really heard anything from them except that. It was really good. As I say, Velvet Sea Indie. I can't really be clearer than that. It's exactly what that sounds like.
Yeah, I can hear it in my mind now, and I'm not offended.
Yeah. So your 14 was Wake Up by the Boo Radleys. My 13 is Leftism by Left Field, which we've already talked about. What was your 13?
My 13 is an album I feel broadly the same. Actually, no, slightly worse than Leftism about. It's the second album by Tindersticks,
Ah, yeah.
also called Tindersticks, but so is their debut. So this is called Tindersticks, parenthesis, the second album. NME describes it as no longer a smoky whiskey bar at midnight. Now they're the croaking phantoms of the opera. At the time, I had no awareness of this whatsoever. Now, I think the main source of interest for me is that it's charming that someone at Island Records, as recently as 30 years ago, thought that they could make money off 70 minutes of these sort of glowering Southern Soul Leonard Cohen hybrids.
This was number 5 on the Melody Maker list.
Wow.
I thought this was actually very good, but not really suited to this kind of marathon listening session.
No.
And also 16 tracks, an hour and 10 minutes. I just thought it was too much. I was just kind of really done with this. But I thought it was good, but similar to you. I do remember them from the time. I remember reading about them a lot, and the kind of was always positive coverage of them. But yeah, I never took the plunge. Yeah, I don't think I think it would have I think it would have baffled me at the time.
I think I dipped a toe in with the next album, or at least the singles around it. I think there was one called Bath Time or something.
Yeah.
And it was so odd and different to what else I was listening to. I was willing to entertain it. But yeah, this one was not. This one was too early for me.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Number 12 for me was Clouds Taste Metallic by the Flaming Lips. I wrote more fat checks for Warners to cash. It's described as imagine the Beach Boys play the Stooges produced by Spectre for some idea of the exquisite assault on the senses. Proof that noise and bombast can still be deeply moving. I'd agree with that, except for the part about Spectre. I don't know where they're getting that from, but yeah, pretty good. Was this on your list?
No, it wasn't. This is the one that's got She Don't Use Jelly on it.
Actually, no, it's the one after that. Yeah, the singles from Clouds Taste Metallic are This Here Giraffe, When You Smile, Christmas at the Zoo, and Bad Days. Any of those ringing a bell?
When You Smile rings a bell.
Okay. I had not heard this album. It's good. I don't think I'll return to it though.
I always felt you were more welcoming of the Flaming Lips than I.
Yeah, I feel like I should like their early stuff more than I do. I don't really like it. Soft Bulletin is great. Either side of that, I could take it or leave it. So your number 12 is the debut album by the Foo Fighters, which we've already discussed. My number 11 is In the Space of a Few Minutes by Telstar Ponies. It's about the most Melody Maker pick you could possibly imagine.
This is like ex-Teenage Fan Club people, isn't it?
Yeah, they mention the fact that they say, despite the presence of an ex-Teenage FC, like it's still good. It's fucking, I don't know what they've got against Teenage Fan Club. Yeah, it's the most Melody Maker pick possible. It's like, as I put, it's in the fine tradition of Scottish bands influenced by Sonic Youth. It's kind of like, sounds a lot like Sonic Youth, sounds a lot like Slint, but with a kind of cinematic, motoric vibe to a lot of the tracks. This is really good. I really like this. Yeah, I'll definitely listen to this again. It was great.
From memory, it's the drummer Teenage Fan Club kicked out for being too much of a pisshead.
That's exactly right.
And it's my favourite band name on this list.
Okay, yeah, it's great. Was it on your list?
No, it was not.
Okay. I mean, that and the Drugstore album, the two big discoveries really for me from this list. I'll definitely buy those and listen to them again.
Which is really interesting because they are both prime pre-Britpop indie projects.
Yeah, that says a lot about my taste, I think. So 11 for you, we know, was Elastica by Elastica. My number 10, here we go. We made it. It is The Great Escape by Blur. Worth pointing out, in the original Melody Maker review, they gave this album a 12 out of 10. Now, something very important happened with Blur at the end of the year, which I'm not going to go into, but it does play into. There's a kind of concept. There's a real recurring joke with end of year lists and the recency bias. Albums from January and February generally kind of fall by the wayside. I actually looked at the release dates of all 50 albums on this, and there was kind of a recency bias, but not as bad as you might think.
You've really gone for the stats angle
Yeah,
with this selection, haven't you?
I know,
I
yeah.
feel like I'm clad in vibes alone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, that's it. You're the vibe man. I'm in the lab. But yeah, no, I'm going to talk about how those stats affected the Melody Maker and the NME a bit later when we get into the top five. But for now, talking about The Great Escape by Blur. Despite myself, I would say I quite enjoyed this. This is something you could say about What's the Story, Morning Glory, which is obviously released the same year. We'll get to it. Well crafted, supremely confident gibberish, but hollow at the center and too long, too many tracks. But I thought this was a band on form at being themselves, if you know what I mean. Where was it on your list, Graham?
So this came in at number 9 on the enemies list.
Okay.
The NME really gets into the spirit of proceedings by saying The Great Escape is the record none of the others are capable of. Intelligent, disorientatingly varied, and even revealing some vulnerability behind Damon Albarn's previously impenetrable armor. I think now this is probably the first time from memory that I have ever consciously listened to this album the whole way through. From that limited exposure, it's less music hall than I anticipated, and it's a lot more like 80s new wavy.
Yeah.
Like I don't know a lot of XTC, but this feels like it shares a lot of DNA with it. And then when that music hall slant does come in, weirdly, the thing it reminds me most of is the later era McCartney Beatles songs.
Mm-hmm.
Like in that sense, it feels more Beatlesy than say, What's the Story, Morning Glory. But the thing that exhausted me is like, if you're going to make an album of character studies, but you have a single note for your character studies, which is detached sneering, you're going to lose me really, really quickly. Like, I found it exhausting. I kind of enjoyed the audacity of opening the album with stereotypes. Like, you open your album with a song about people being reduced to lazy stereotypes,
Yeah.
and then proceed to spend an album reducing people to lazy stereotypes. It's like, is he in on the joke?
I don't know, but you're right. There's a sneery kind of middle class intellectualism to it, which, surprisingly, I just thought it was a successful pop album, really.
Churchill got his knocking up tomorrow there's enough.
So, Graham, what was your number 10?
It is Timeless by Goldie. NME reckons this is Jungle's first superstar, and the red flags start flying straight away because that superstar has crafted a 100-minute symphony of whizzing breakbeats, fluid soundscapes, and mind-warping mood swings, forging jazz, ambient, and orchestral hybrids along the way. At the time, I knew the Inner City Pressure video from the chart show, and that was about it. Like, it was weird, disorientating music. But, that's how I felt about drum and bass in 1995. First impressions were, this is prog, like, drum and bass.
Yeah.
But it's also got a surprisingly, like, high quota of what I describe as sort of wine bar soul. And then you've got these, like, tear out kind of old school jungle bangers.
Yeah, wine bar soul is a very good way of describing it. Did which version of this did you listen to, by the way? Did you listen to the double CD version or the single CD version?
Double CD.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
I felt like I should commit to this properly.
That's an hour and 50 minutes, by the way, for those listening.
It was just so long. But yeah,
Don't cry.
I think it's an interesting historical artifact, but I think we've talked about better drum and bass albums in this list already. And I do not understand the cult of celebrity that follows this guy around.
This was number 8 on my list. I thought it was very good, but not that good. So basically, I'm in agreement with you on this album. So my number 9 was "To Bring You My Love" by PJ Harvey.
which is my number 8.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, what did you think of this? Actually, I'm gonna take a different tack. I'm interested to hear what you think.
I mean, I wasn't really aware of this at the time. In the modern day, PJ Harvey kind of continues to elude me, either despite or because of the consensus that she's an important artist. This album isn't going to change my mind. Like it's super, super committed to this Southern Gothic swamp rock aesthetic. And maybe I'm straying into authenticity police territory here. But the knowledge that this is an artist from the southwest of England, when she's kind of committing to that Southern Gothic and swamp rock thing so hard, it sort of fatally undermines the whole thing for me. I can accommodate performance, I can accommodate people taking on roles, but when someone commits so fully to a role, but you still know it's a role, then it's almost like musical uncanny valley territory.
Yeah, have a similar relationship to her as you do, which is here's a totemic important artist that I've never really been that into. I like the early stuff, the kind of noisy, grungy stuff. I think that is less committed to the role that you're talking about now. I think that's kind of my favorite period for her. Again, I just wrote 42 minutes. That's how you do it.
I will say that Down by the River is a real standout.
Absolutely. It's bloody good. It's not like you couldn't say this is shit. It's excellent, but like, yeah, it does nothing for me.
Yeah, that's exactly my position. Like, this is a really good album that doesn't vibe with me.
So, as we discussed, my number 8 was Timeless by Goldie, your hero. Your number 8, we just said, is a PJ Harvey, To Bring You My Love. So that brings us on to number 7, which is I Should Coco by Supergrass. Where was this on your list, Graham?
Let's go. Number 6.
So I really enjoyed listening to this again. I was surprised to see that All Right has 500 million streams on Spotify. Very impressive. I thought it was excellent. First 2/3 let down by quite a limp ending. Still a very enjoyable listen for me. In anticipation of perhaps you're not going to do this, but you saying to me, justify your Supergrass fandom. And you talked about the kind of musical thing, we talked about on an earlier episode. Just again, running the numbers and looking at the dates as I did, my relationship to this album. So this band I really think of as being like somebody I listened to a lot during my GCSEs. And when I looked at the dates of the singles, I can see why that is, because Caught by the Fuzz comes out in October 94. Man-Sized Rooster comes out in February 95. Lose It comes out in March 95. Lenny comes out in May 95. And then I Should Coco comes out middle of May 95. So that is how I thought of them, right? That run of quite kind of punky,
Yeah.
rough, yes, fine, jokey singles. The track All Right, which is the 4th track on this, I had another friend who was into them. We thought of that song as like kind of a piss take, and we were very surprised when they released it as a single. It was like this kind of ragged punk, slightly humorous. It was all about youth smoking weed, not kind of pearly hats and Wurlitzers. Like, do you know what I mean? That's kind of been put on it by All Right, which is so ubiquitous. But as I say, if you look at those 4 singles and the album, because All Right doesn't come out as a single until July. So listening to things in a vacuum as you did then, up until that happened, like your view of them just completely flips with that one song. But
Yeah.
I'm forever caught in. I think the first 3 songs in particular on this album are excellent. I think Caught by the Fuzz is amazing. Yeah, we talked about Ash earlier. I think Caught by the Fuzz is kind of up there with like Kung Fu. It's just like great indie 7 inches of the 90s. What did you think?
I have something to say that may shock and amaze you.
Yeah.
I don't land a million miles from your position.
Okay.
At the time, I found All Right to be a profoundly triggering song.
Yeah.
Like, that's a real turn the radio off moment for me.
Yeah.
But I'd heard Caught by the Fuzz, and I was really intrigued by it. I'd heard the album a few times over the years. Coming back to it now, I think it's disposable fun,
Yes.
and it's punkier than I remember. The NME described it as, what did they say? Beneath the Mockney patois lurked a monstrous balls-out groove machine dispensing maximum R&B. And that kind of tallies with how I felt listening to it again, because a lot of it reminds me of The Jam.
Yeah.
Like, like kind of like sort of power trio, like going for that kind of punky R&B,
Yeah, good shout.
like sort of short, sharp pop songs. I think it's a shame that All Right and Man Size Rooster have inspired so much terrible music. Like you do not get the Fratellis without those songs. But like stuff like I'd Like to Know and Lose It. They're just really good bubblegum bangers, and obviously massive bonus points for keeping it to 40 minutes.
Absolutely. Funnily enough, Melody Maker describe it as the best concise guitar psychedelia in 3 decades.
All right.
Yep. That's a take. But I think they're leaning heavily on the druggy kind of aspect of it. What was your number 7?
My number 7, I think I'm about to preempt you massively, is Pulp, Different Class.
Okay.
The NME like really kind of plays all the hits with this one. A call to arms for the misfits and misunderstood. This man eats life for breakfast, and this album is his stomach contents magnified to fit the grandstand-sized pop visions his band are realizing. So again, I think we're going to be talking about Pulp briefly in a future episode, or maybe in depth in a future episode, I forget. So for me at the time, Babies had been this standout, if really odd record for me to love. And I had a radio recording of their Glastonbury 1994 set, but I stepped in for the Stone Roses at the last minute, and I played that a lot. I think with Different Class, the sort of carpet bombing of the singles on radio and the Jarvis Cocker ubiquity as this kind of arch northern working class talking head really sort of dimmed my enthusiasm for Pulp as a proposition very quickly. Like it was certainly on the shelf by December 1995. I think now now having the vocabulary to understand the influences a bit better. So he's come up a lot during recording this, but 60s Scott Walker is definitely in there.
Yes.
There's big chunks of the Human League in there, like which kind of figures with Sheffield heritage. And obviously Roxy Music is in the mix as well. Those composite parts get you Different Class. So I appreciate what they're going for a little more, but my basic position hasn't changed. Like I never want to hear Common People or Disco 2000 again. For anyone fortunate enough to not have been cognizant of the radio at the end of the 90s, the fact that you were pummeled by Disco 2000 in 1995 and 6, and then it came back in 1999 was a real piss take. So yeah, those singles completely burnt me out, and more subjectively, the whole huzzah for the misfit underdog weirdos shtick always felt really insincere.
I don't know if I found it insincere. I just found it cringy.
Yeah, maybe that's what I really want to say, but I'm trying to hide behind insincere.
Yeah, to quote Mobb Deep, maybe want to get on some high school shit and punch people in the face just for living.
Yes, thank you, Havoc.
Okay, well, you're right. We are getting ahead of ourselves here. This was number 1 on the Melody Maker Top 50 albums of 1995.
I knew it when you said they were on the cover.
They list its inspirations as Serge Gainsbourg, Tamla Motown, Busby Berkeley, Giorgio Moroder, and the Sex Pistols.
Right.
The classic Melody Maker, NME 90s band salad influences that they would just do. I kind of see what they're going for, but yeah, not quite. It makes a tremendous amount of sense for this to be number 1 for me in this year. I mean, we talked about, I think I said before, that I think the most successful Britpop album for me personally is I Should Coco by Supergrass in terms of what that vague sound is, even though we just discussed that not really being that sound. I think really the answer for this generally is this is the most successful Britpop album in terms of doing what it is that Britpop does. This kind of, UK slice of life. It's like the Blur album, but coming from a more authentic place.
It feels like the apex of what Melody Maker specifically would want Britpop to be.
Smart, basically.
Yeah, it's like it's not a complete sort of rejection of traditional indie values.
Yeah.
Like it's still got one foot in that camp.
I like the singles more than you do. I think they don't grate on me. I enjoyed listening to all of them. I think I think this album is very good, excellent singles sandwiched between good to very good album tracks. This would be the most logical choice for their album, the top album for 1995 for them.
Sorry about ruining your number one reveal.
Do you know what? Because there's a shocking twist for number one this year, which we'll get into. So my number 6 is The Bends by Radiohead. Their second album. This is definitely the most fun Radiohead album. Really good singles, riff-tastic. It's a bit Queen. It's a lot U2. I would say though, having listened to this twice this year for another episode, I listened to this. The boring tracks here are really starting to age badly, but the highs are pretty fucking high. It's like, as I say, amazing singles and really good fun to listen to singles and some really, really good album tracks. It's Street Spirit Fade Out is the last song on this album, which is absolutely amazing. It was amazing then, it's amazing now. Yeah, it's one of their best songs. Where was it on your list, Graham?
This came in at number 4 on the NME's list. Radiohead laced the bends with panoramic melodies and skyscraping bombast and emerged as Britain's biggest rock hope. The new U2 or just newly sensible haircuts? I remember doing a U-turn on this fairly quickly. I went in with the attitude of it's the whiny creep band, no thank you. And then I was in the, yeah, I like this camp, like surprisingly quickly afterwards. I think to this day, I agree it's their most fun album, but to this day, it's a band I find very easy to respect and be impressed by and very hard to love. But conversely, this is what I'd call their most lovable album.
Yes.
And I think a big part of that is that Tom York hasn't worked out how to fully camouflage his rock star aspirations. Like they still sort of burst out in these like melodramatic overreaches, like things like Just and like the Fake Plastic Trees coda.
Yeah. Or the title track.
Yes, that's a good shout. Being a country bastard, I've never got on with Street Spirit, and I still don't. And to compound that further, what I know the common consensus is are the boring throwaway tracks are some of my favorites.
Like what?
Black Star and Sulk are both grossly, unfairly maligned. Sulk especially, when it just goes into the stratosphere in the back half. You got Tom York yowling, doing the melodramatic overreach. Johnny Greenwood like melts his guitar, and I find it absolutely thrilling. It's one of my favorite moments in the entire Radiohead back catalogue. I do find it really interesting that the bands that were so obviously inspired by this, like Coldplay and Muse, were so bad at pulling it off.
To be fair to both of them, they kind of were aping them, and then they just went in very much their own directions.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess Coldplay kind of go full like commitment to the Fake Plastic Trees angle, and Muse just tread the Queen line harder.
Coldplay did the U2 thing of just like, let's try and stay current. Like, do you know what I mean? Through collaborations and, we'll give anything a go. Do you know what I mean? Like that seemed to be their attitude. And Muse obviously went harder into the prog end of things. Yeah. Speaking of tracks that are underrated, I really like the track Nice Dream on this.
Yeah, the shoegaze one. That is a good one.
Yeah, it's very good. Okay, this always hurts my head when we have to go backwards. So we've done number 6. So this would be my number 5 next, which we've already discussed, which is Tinder Sticks by Tinder Sticks. Graham, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is not on your list. I say that with absolute confidence.
Okay.
It's Grand Prix by Teenage Fan Club.
Okay, yeah. It is not on my list.
Because at this point, our chronology is shot to shit. I feel compelled to point out that at this point, I've had to listen to Timeless, The Great Escape, To Bring You My Love, Different Class, and I Should Coco back to back. Like,
all your favorites.
I'm feeling pretty bruised at this point, and maybe that I don't like music as much as I thought I did. I put this on, and within 10 seconds of About You kicking in, the rush it gave me after the never-ending slog of that last set of albums almost reduced me to tears. As like, this is utterly incredible. Like, I am overwhelmed with feelings. I don't think this is a great album, like to spoil the end. But like the bang after bang after bang sequence of like About You in a Sparky's Dream and Verisimilitude and Neil Young and the other one I've forgotten, but it's still really good.
Mellowed out.
Mellowed Out, that's what I'm thinking of. It's so front loaded, it's insane, but it's an incredible front.
Yeah.
So
I love the back half of this album.
yeah, something tells me that if I spent more time with it, like maybe I'd come to appreciate it.
I think we get more into the kind of Scottish bands that sound like noisy US rock bands vibe, but via their kind of early Beatlesy thing that they're doing at this time. So maybe that's why I'm more into it than you.
Knowing what happens with the next album and admittedly not having a hugely in-depth knowledge of what they've been up to in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this feels like their last ostensibly noisy album.
Mhm.
Like it starts to get more and more refined from this point on with songs from Northern Britain and everything else.
Just out of curiosity, where would you put it in your ranking of their best albums of the 90s?
Objectively third, subjectively second.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'd put it third.
I know it's probably not as good as Bandwagon-esque,
Mhm.
but that front half brings me more joy than any of Bandwagon-esque does.
Okay.
Oh yeah, just to confirm, it wasn't on the Melody Maker list,
Oh,
was it?
fucking 100%. Fuckers. Right. Number 4 on the Melody Maker list is It's Great When You're Straight, Yeah, by Black Grape. I owned this at the time. I was hyped for this band and this album and indeed the singles because I liked the Happy Mondays when I was a child. I still like them now. Good singles, one great album track, which is Shake Your Money. The rest of the album I find really dull. It is exactly as I remember it. There were no surprises here for me at all. This is just crystallized in my brain. I remember the review in the NME. I think they gave it like an 11 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 or something stupid like that. And they were calling it like the greatest party album ever. I think it's really, really far from that.
Yes.
I wouldn't even say it's okay. I'd say it has like the 3 good singles, 1 good album track, and then the rest is utterly forgettable. I just don't get it. But then again, this album has, I would say, 0 cultural footprint. It's never mentioned in the kind of best albums of the 90s or anything like that.
Which is funny because it's a number 3 in the NME list.
Yeah.
And NME references it as an all-embracing celebration of a nation's cultures at play.
Interesting.
For my part, I was shocked at how many of the album cuts sound like Achtung Baby outtakes. Like that sort of like kind of, I don't know, like major label baggy sort of sound.
Yeah.
But now I've got that out of the way with a kind of series of bullet points. Probably the best album cover of the year. I love this album cover.
Do you want to describe the album cover?
Oh, so the album cover is a headshot of a heavily disguised Carlos the Jackal put through a sort of screamadelica color palette with incredibly lurid shades of turquoise, yellow, and green. It's brilliant. But more importantly than that, it has the best P-Funk track of the 90s and something I've listened to endlessly since we started researching the idea for this episode, which is the aforementioned Shake Your Money.
It's what a great track.
If I was Bobby Gillespie and I heard that after cutting Funky Jam, I'd just be like, ah, shit, we really blew this.
I loved that as at the time. It's stuck in my head for every now and again. I will listen to it and I'll be like, it's still good. Still the most fun song about selling heroin ever. It's fantastic.
Also, it's got my favorite lyric of this entire list on it. When Shawn Ryder recites the words, "Everybody wants to get busy. Counting money makes me fucking dizzy."
Yeah.
That's a fantastic lyric.
Yeah, it's great. That song is what they say the album is in the reviews. But just that one song. Even the singles don't quite come up to how accurately that sums up the vibe that the press was selling.
Yeah, it's an incredible track. It sounds like a dangerous party you probably shouldn't be at but don't want to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so your number 4 was The Bends by Radiohead, which we've already discussed, which brings us on to my number 3, which is What's the Story, Morning Glory by Oasis. Now,
well, this won't take long.
Yeah, well, this brings me back to what I was saying about Blur. The Great Escape by Blur came out in mid-September of 1995. What's the Story, Morning Glory by Oasis comes out on the 2nd of October, 1995. The overall consensus of the Music Weeklies is that Oasis slightly fumbled and made an underwhelming follow-up and sort of better luck next time. And that Blur hit it out the park and they were on a, rocket ship to the moon. However, the UK public strong disagree. They were like, we love Oasis and we love this album and we're going to buy it by the ton. And to talk about the stats, 1 in 10 households own a copy of this record, or they did at the time, etc., etc. To be honest, when I first heard tracks 3 and 4 back to back on this album, which are Wonderwall and Don't Look Back in Anger, I was like, Oasis are competing in a completely different league to everybody else, including Blur. They are going to be absolutely massive. I could see that, even bigger than they were. I could see that even as a 16-year-old. So what the music press has to do at this point, even though it's December, and as I say, these albums came out in September and October, is do a bit of an about face rearrange where they're like, actually, this album's really good, and we're going to hold it up as being really good. Because the people have spoken and what they want is Oasis. And I wouldn't say they completely distance themselves from Blur, but they start to wriggle away slightly and become more Oasis focused and less Blur focused. I know there's a lot of Blur coverage in your NME this week. I do understand that, but effectively they're like, we need to give the people what they want, and what they want is Oasis and lots of it.
I mean, there's just as much Oasis coverage. It's just done in a slightly different way. If anything, Blur's coverage is a long form mea culpa from the band,
yes,
about where they've gone wrong. And Oasis is Noel Gallagher telling you what good music is. So make of that what you will.
I mean, here's the, speaking of mea culpas, the beginning of the Melody Maker's Capture review is though not as immediate as its predecessor, meaning, look, guys, we're wrong, because they actually ripped the shit out of it in their review, Melody Maker. They really they really give this album a kicking. I mean, we'll get into this next go around, but they then hilariously, massively overcompensate with Be Here Now, which is given rave reviews because they don't want to repeat the same mistake that they made with this album. But yeah, they say Morning Glory reached for greater and more ecstatic heights. Britain's premier super lads have committed themselves to a more thoughtful future, a grand and great promise. Yeah. Where was this on the NME list? Number 2, I'm guessing?
Yeah, number 2.
Yeah.
I kind of perceive that number 2 position as like a qualified olive branch from the NME after giving it a very mid review.
Yeah.
It's almost like, yeah, okay, we're going to recognize this, but we're not putting it at number 1. We're not willing to bow that deeply. I find it really interesting, that kind of that music press setup of Blur's rocket ship versus Oasis whiffing it, because it's just really hard for me to see how anyone can listen to those 2 albums and not pick the album that the wider British public is going to resonate with. That Blur album is so mean-spirited, and the Oasis album is you can accuse it of being unsophisticated or simplistic, but there's a real generosity of emotion in it. It's an open, enveloping album. I'm not going to call Noel Gallagher inclusive. What's left of my hair will fall out.
Yeah.
But the Oasis album is so self-evidently for the people. Of course it's going to be the one that sticks.
Yeah. As I say, as I said earlier, by The Great Escape, it's a bit hollow at the center, but it is very good. And it's really funny. I haven't listened to this album in decades, and I completely forgot about the song Hey Now. And hilariously, as soon as the album finished, I also could not remember what that song was. I just knew there was one in there. If pub quiz style, you had to go tracks 1 through 12 on this album and name all of them, I think I would get them all except track 5, which is Hey Now. Yeah, I still can't remember actually now I'm talking about it.
Funny, I remember the hook of that one quite clearly.
Okay, yeah, no, that passed me by.
Hey Now is just a rewrite of Shaker Maker.
Okay, oh yeah, now I can kind of hear it. Okay. Yeah, anyway, what did you think of this, listening to it again?
So it's one of those albums that's so ubiquitous. It's really hard to take it on its own terms.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't bother trying. But what I will say, particularly a drum I want to beat, is about Roll With It,
Mm-hmm.
which is dismissed as this kind of like, well, neither Blur or Oasis used their best singles for their kind of single battle. Hard disagree. I think Roll With It is Oasis' most underrated single. And it's, as well as one of the saddest hit songs of our youth. I just think that's a beautiful song.
Really?
And it's, yeah, like the passage of time and the distance from all the noise has allowed me to appreciate it on those terms.
Interesting.
Like that coda at the end, when the two of them are like kind of harmonizing, like, think I've got a feeling I've lost inside,
Yeah.
so take me away. That is absolutely incredible.
Yes, yeah. I like that song. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's their best. I think some might say it's also quite underrated. I think their most underrated single for me is Stand By Me, which I love from Be Here Now.
That is good. One last thing. Considering what an enormous world-conquering album it is, I find the first two singles to be quite odd choices.
Yeah.
Like, some might say is this kind of mid-tempo like chugger, and then you follow that up with Roll With It, which is this sort of like kind of hungover melancholy.
Yeah. But didn't some might say came out quite a bit before the album, didn't it?
Yeah, I want to say it's like January 95, or maybe, yes, it must be January, February 95, because it came off the back of whatever.
It's April. Yeah, it's April. So yeah, maybe that's just me being young at the time. It felt like an eternity. So that was my number 3. Your number 3 was Black Grape. So there's only one album left, which we're both. It's going to be the same album. So Melody Maker kind of cheated this year. They didn't have a number 2. They had a joint number 1, which was the aforementioned Pulp, a different class, which was above this album. So really, that was number 1. This is number 2, and of course, the joint number 1 is Maxine Quay by Tricky, which I'm guessing made it all the way to number 1 on the NME list.
Standalone number 1, yeah.
So this is your second time listening to this year, all right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I went pretty deep on this for our 95 Trip Hop special.
I'd never heard this before, so I was very interested to hear it. Didn't love it, to be honest.
Interesting.
I found it really underwhelming. I wonder whether it was just, again, part of the kind of mad dash that we had to do. I was so happy to be at the end of this process that I was just kind of waiting for it to end. I really dislike the vocals and the production, which is basically the whole album.
I really dislike this album.
Yeah, and I realised that's my problem, and it's a great album, and I should just get into it. Maybe one day I will, but I wasn't. I was pretty underwhelmed by this whole thing. I'm no big trip hop hater, but yeah, it's didn't do it for me.
Yeah, second time around, I struggled more. My first impression of it earlier in the year, I was like, yeah, this is like, I feel like I've discovered something fascinating here. Like, I want to spend more time with this and dig deeper. Coming back to it, and again, I think context is important in terms of us trying to listen to all these albums, but it was a bit of a slog, as it feels like a very long album.
Yes.
I think some of the complaints I made about it previously, like some of these samples are very, very well used, like to the point of like having all the kind of, all the effect rinsed out of them. It's long, like the whole kind of vibe of sort of like dark, threatening, sexy. I don't know. I'm not sure that works for me at this point in my life.
You've been looking at my Tinder profile again.
So, yeah, your pitch is just this album cover. Yeah, I found it more of a struggle this time around. I still think it's interesting. I still feel like I should persevere with it. And I think there's some great stuff about it. A lot of that is Martina Topley-Bird, who's completely essential to this album. And it really should be like a double bill Raekwon and Ghostface style setup.
Yeah.
But it's not.
The place where I stand gives way to liquid lino underneath the weeping willow lies a weeping wino. The place where I stand gives way to liquid lino underneath the
So that was it. That's our top 50. By the way, for those interested, there are 26 overlapping albums on the Melody Maker and NME list, which means there's 24 unique albums to each list. So it's about 50-50. It's almost suspicious considering they're both published by the same publishing house. I don't know whether they all sat in a room together and did this, but
Do you think they tried to eavesdrop on each other's meeting rooms?
I've no idea. It probably sounds very naive what I just said. We didn't have time to look at what the others were doing. I think that based on the list we've just gone through, there are some egregious things that aren't on on the NME list or on the Melody Maker list, which we've already talked about. I just made a quick list of things that I think, were you making this list today, you would add. These are not necessarily things that I would put in. I've saved that for a different list, but kind of rather egregious, I thought. Off the list, first up, Brown Sugar by D'Angelo on neither list.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely one you would now put in, but I mean, this really says a lot about the time that this wasn't in either list. Is Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette. There was absolutely no way that either of these papers were going to give that any kind of respect at all.
Yeah.
Like, that was the lower than the lowest possible thing you could possibly listen to in terms of these two papers. It was just not cool. It was corporate alternative rock nonsense.
What do you think was more reviled by these papers, Alanis Morissette or Red Hot Chili Peppers?
Alanis Morissette. She had to contend with the misogyny as well. Yeah, the kind of female confessional thing, but done not in the way that they liked. It's never good. I think Red Hot Chili Peppers, they were just occasionally like, well, they're fun for some people.
At least we can enjoy the buffoons briefly.
Yeah, exactly. I think also I would say I Care Because You Do, maybe by Aphex Twin. I don't think anybody particularly loves that album, but I mean, it is good and it's not on either list. So Old Dirty Bastard, Return to 36 Chambers. Another big one I think would definitely be on the list now is Tragic Kingdom by No Doubt, which again would be nowhere near even being discussed being on this list, as well as even further away from the discussion would be Daydream by Mariah Carey, and perhaps even further than that would be Pygmalion by Slow Dive. There's no fucking way any of those three albums would get on that list.
Pygmalion's like my kind of standout. This would never have made the list at the time, but it would now.
Yeah. And the other one would be Viva Dixie Submarine Transmission Plot by Sparkle Horse. I'm surprised that wasn't on either list. And Elliott Smith by Elliott Smith, also not on either list. Yeah, those stood out to me as things that, were they to do it now, they would be on somewhere. Maybe they would take it off fucking Urge Overkill or some shit like that.
let lotion live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Anything you would add to those?
In terms of rock critic consensus, there's a couple which I think might make the cut on a contemporary view. The two for me are And the Circus Leaves Town, which is the final Caius album.
Okay.
Caius obviously split before this album even comes out, and Josh Homme and Nick Oliveri go off and form Queens of the Stone Age. The other one, which I remember being covered in the NME this year, but isn't to be seen here, is The Ghost of Tom Joad by Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah. Good shout.
Neither of those are on here. I think, from a contemporary view, they would both be present and correct.
100%. And just for fun, we both put together our personal favourite albums of 1995.
Yeah, call it fun now before we start brawling straight after.
Well, I would say these are our personal favourite albums of 1995. These are not necessarily what we think are the best albums of 1995, but our personal favourites. And also, really important to note, if you think we're trying to do some revisionist history here, these are our personal favourites as we are in 2025. If I was to make this list in 1995, it would be very different. Yeah. Graham, do you want to start?
Yeah, go on then. And nothing encapsulates your qualifier there than my number 10 being my number 10 rather than my number 1. It's PHUQ by the Wild Hearts. Their second album, it was supposed to be a double album. East West Records did not agree with that idea. So it came out as a single album.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know. I know who'd have thought it. I remember queuing up outside Record Corner, our local record shop, to get this in its limited edition purple velvet slipcase on the day of release. In my view, I'm not going to try and convert anyone on this point. I believe it to have aged very well. It's like a British heavy rock record that kind of veers into sort of new wavy hooks and some almost industrial metal at points, along with some really kind of blatantly sort of Beatlesy sort of psychedelia. It's a good time, and I enjoy it to this day.
Great.
Number 9 is the aforementioned Ghost of Tom Joad by Bruce Springsteen. I came to this album very, very late, mainly because I'd been obsessed with his Nebraska album, which predates this by about 15 years, and wanted more in that vein. This album isn't exactly like that. It's got a bit more instrumentation, it's a bit more hi-fi, and there are definitely some production choices that date it a little. You know, it's a record from a established major label artist in the mid-90s, but I also think it's got some of the most incredible songwriting on it I have ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
A combination of Youngstown and Straight Time. Those are two of my favorite Bruce Springsteen songs of all time and two of my favorite lyrics of all time, full stop. It sags a bit in the back half, but it's got those two songs at the front, so I'll forgive it.
Okay.
Number 8, and this is probably one that would go in the kind of the looked at more favorably in 2025 column, is Lab Cabin California by the Far Side.
Yeah.
If I want to listen to a Far Side album, there is no question this is the album I'm going to. It's predominantly produced by the producer who will go on to call himself Jay Dilla. It's a really beautiful, dubby, kind of aquatic sort of production. And the Far Side themselves have turned down the wackiness from Bizarre Ride to the Far Side like massively. Yeah, it's a really enjoyable double album to spend time with. Next up, number 7, it's Pygmalion by Slowdive.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe called on this one a little bit from when I first discovered it, but yeah, just a really stunning kind of blend of shoegaze, ambient, dub, and music concrete with some surprisingly affecting songwriting in there as well. Next up, Radiohead The Bends. We talked about that already. Number 5, and I still think I might have put this slightly too low. It's Liquid Swords by The Jizzer. Number 4, and I think I might have put this slightly too high, is Pure Phase by Spiritualized Electric Mainline. Number 3 is Raekwon, Cuban Links.
Only number 3.
Yeah, I know. Number 2, boosted hugely by how much I enjoyed listening to it this go round, is Post by Björk.
Yep.
Which means inevitably my number 1 album is an album that did not even make the NME's top 50. It's probably having an unprecedented level of attention at the moment after Pitchfork declared it the best hip-hop album of all time. It's The Infamous by Mobb Deep.
Do you know what? I'd completely missed Pitchfork calling it the best hip-hop album of all time, so this basically looks like we're jumping on the back of that.
Yeah, but no one gives a fuck about Pitchfork in 2025.
That's true, thank God. Unlike our podcast. Setting the table for music discourse in 2025.
So yeah, that's my top 10.
Good list.
The Wild Hearts, Springsteen, Farside, Slowdive, Radiohead, The Jizzer, Spiritualized, Raekwon, Björk, and Mobb Deep. I will say there is an obvious omission, which that there is not a single electronic album in that top 10.
Well, get ready for mine.
Yeah, something tells me it's about to be rebalanced.
Yeah. So my list, which I've rewritten about 5 times since you discussed us doing this, but I'm going to have to do 10 with an honorable mention, which I know is cheating.
Man, I did one list and I was like, it's got to come from the gut and it locks in and that's it. I'm sticking with it.
Okay, well this is from my gut. So this is number 10, which possibly before we'd done this process, I wouldn't have put this in the top 10, but re-listening to it reminded me how good it was, and that is Post by Björk. Yeah, which we've spoken about this at length on the podcast already. I think it's excellent. Number 9 is The Bends by Radiohead. Of this probably a handful of albums on this list that it's almost kind of pure nostalgia for me. It's just about listening to it like rewatching a favorite film from your teenage years, or rereading something or playing a video game from then or something like that. It just kind of slightly takes me back to being a misanthropic 15, 16-year-old. Yeah, as I said, holds up pretty well. Super fun listeners we've already covered. Number 8 is Smoker's Delight by Nightmares on Wax.
Curveball.
Yeah, well, having completely been underwhelmed by the Tricky album, I think maybe it's because this is more my type of trip hop, even though I'm sure he would really recoil at me calling it that, which is just much more of a kind of spacey, down tempo experience that is nothing to do with vocals and everything to do with vibe.
He shared his champagne with me in Seattle once. That's my Nightwares on Wax story.
Amazing, very impressive. Number 7, an album I'm surprised not to see on your list. That's Wowie Zowie by Pavement.
What's an oversight?
Yes, my third favorite Pavement album. Yeah, it's sprawling collage of American college rock, just like I like it. Basically, it's it's very good. I don't find it the kind of arch thing which you find so grating about them is something about them I almost completely ignore. Like I never think of them as trying to be funny or arch. It to me it's like it's like another distorted texture the way they use words and concepts. It's about 10 down of like the things that I think are important about this band.
I feel like the tone of what we've covered in these 2 episodes is that you are quite good at detaching yourself from that kind of archness.
Yeah.
Whereas I listen to music like a drunk at closing time shouting, "Are you looking at me?"
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, number 6, you may see this as cheating, but it's my list, so fuck off, is Tourism by Boards of Canada. Obviously,
Obviously.
nowhere on my radar in 1995 or on anybody at the Melody Maker or NME's radar.
Or anyone outside of Edinburgh.
Yeah, anyone outside of Edinburgh, being that it was self-released by the band, limited run 12-inch, not my favourite Boards of Canada album by any stretch, probably my 4th, but it's very good. Kind of lays the foundation for them. I really like the fact that it feels it's them in kind of an embryonic state. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's like a dress rehearsal for Music Has the Rights of Children.
Absolutely. Number 5 is Grand Prix by Teenage Fan Club. This is my 3rd favourite Teenage Fan Club album. A bit like The Bends by Radiohead. This is pure nostalgia vibes for me, but also I just think it's a really good album with really well written, well produced songs. Yeah, soaring harmonies, jangling guitars, it's all good. Power pop greatness. Yeah. Number 4 is Liquid Swords by Jizza. Again, probably my 3rd favorite Wu-Tang solo album. Yeah, I think everything you said about that I would agree with. Number 3 is Try Repete by Ortega. I think I mentioned this in the last episode. I think it's the perfect album. It's their perfect album. Number 2 is The Infamous by Mobb Deep. Amazing, savage, cold, chilling, lots of other words that make you think of like unforgiving New York streets.
Lots of other words that make you think of misery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. As I said, I described it as the most thrilling shade of grey, concrete grey ever. I think that's kind of, yeah, I think that's kind of accurate. Unlike the next album, which is my number 1, which I would say is Kaleidoscopic, which is Only Built for Cuban Links by Raekwon. Gritty, cinematic, immersive, incredible performances, like vocal performances by everybody involved, is really bringing their A game, but it sounds like they all got together to go like, we've got one shot to make the best thing ever, so let's put all of our energy into this. But that's just how they sounded all the time at that period. Yeah, absolutely amazing. A real thrilling listen, full of amazing lyrics and really raw, visceral performances.
Yeah, when people talk about artists having an imperial phase, where seemingly everything they touch turns to gold, that's genuinely what was happening to the Wu-Tang Clan at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And my honourable mention is another member of the Wu-Tang Clan, which is Old Dirty Bastard, and that is Return to 36 Chambers, the dirty version. I was swapping this around with Nightmares on Wax and Björk like endlessly, but yeah, it just got nudged out at the end.
I forgot my honorable mention, but it puts a bow on this whole endeavor quite nicely. My honorable mention is Music for Wave States by Deathbed Convert. That released last week while we were doing this episode. It is an absolutely stunning new age record by a label called Touch Sensitive out of Belfast, and it has soothed my troubled brow when I have been listening to all these albums and occasionally thinking I never want to listen to music again.
I can't believe it made neither the NME nor Melody Maker top 50 list in 1995, but there you go.
Well, it did come out last week, so
Okay, fair enough. That's no excuse.
join us next week as we head back to 1993 and November, to be specific. Topics for discussion will include the role of multi-format singles in Regicide. Fundamental will show us what happens when music video shoots attack. And Nirvana mount a robust defense of the cello.
In the meantime, you can find us on socials at most of the usual places. You can find us on Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, all under the Analog Slop name. All one word, spelt ANALOGUESLOP. If you prefer your podcast to involve static pictures, we're also on YouTube. That is youtube.com/@analogslop. That is ANALOGUESLOP. And finally, if you want to send us an email, we're reachable on analogslop@gmail.com.